So at some point it's going to go live. I already see people have commented. So people are already here. So we have Nigel's here, Jacaranda Marie's here, Miss T is here, Cool Deep, Tanis, and Kenny. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Go ahead, please.
No, just saying hello, everyone.
This is Dr. Joe. Dr. Lightheart is a new name I've not heard of. So for those of you who don't know who Dr. Joe is, Dr. Joe I've found him to be quite clever and snarky, which I really love personality wise. And he brings forward this lightheartedness, which is great that his name is Dr. Lightheart, to kind of some it makes the medicine go down easier with the information that he brings forward. And so I just love listening to him. I've watched a bunch of his IM shows that he does on the Soology Network, as well as some of his lives that he does while he walks around. And it's just so fun to connect to his energy. So I'm excited to meet. We've never met and talked before.
We haven't. I think I had a feeling, as I say, it was time to do this. And I just go with my feelings these days, really. I'm just looking at your page now to see when this comes on your page, and then I'm going to share it to my page.
Okay. It should be already. Most of these people are joining from this form.
All right. Don't know what's going on.
So no, they're all YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's live there. So if I do that like that, you'll have to bear with me because I'm useless at this sort of stuff.
That's all right.
So share to a group. Say something about this. I'll just put hello. hello, and then share now. And then that should go to my page. So just bear with me. Skibbly lumpy doo. So I do that like that, do that. And then people can put rude comments on my page and we can maybe
when it's multi-streaming, I don't get every comment. So anybody who doesn't, if there's something that really needs to be brought forward as a question, please just check in. And Stacy's here. Stacy's your neighbor, Dr. Joe. She's my buddy. She's
Is she?
Mm-hmm. Well,
so yeah, Stacy. I've seen Stacy, and I was going to find out where she lives in the UK. Whereabouts in the UK does she live?
She's at the East Coast area.
Right.
I think I always mix up Essex and Wessex, but it's one of those areas.
Oh yeah, that's about. I'd say that was about 250 miles from where I live. I'm on the northwest coast.
Right on.
Quite close to Liverpool, really.
Right on.
So Pamela, it's lovely to meet you. I was saying before, as we share a friend, right? I don't know whether she'll like us to say that, but Elsa. And I see you and Todd and Elsa a lot, and I listen to those a lot. And I do feel a resonance with all of you, really, because when I watch it, all sorts of things go off in my heart and go off in my head and stuff like that, And to be quite honest with you, I'm not altogether sure ever what's happening, but it seems to be working, really, And, I've looked at your courageous person. Right, and you've just up stakes really and moved to is it Houston you're in now, or Texas certainly?
Yeah.
And that's the way I sort of live my life these days. I just sort of go with feelings rather than thoughts, and I just feel like I'm being guided by something that's infinitely more powerful than myself and infinitely more intelligent, and it seems to be working. And I sort of followed this for about 30, coming up to 33 years now, really. It was at the time of something called the harmonic convergence. It was in 1987 when all sorts of things started to come to me, and I was diagnosed with several diagnoses, as psychotic and schizophrenic and stuff like that, really. But I know now that it was just a massive awakening, And at the time, I was trying to throw myself off bridges and things like that, and smacking my head against the wall because just to try and let this stuff out, And so that was my sort of reawakening, if you like, because most of the time I've been like that, since I was born, really, like most of us, I was a highly sensitive child, and I was glued to my mum's leg, and if I ever wanted to do anything, I ran it past my mother first, and because because she was always trying to protect me, I never really had an opportunity to make my own mind up, you know. But my dad was always whispering to me, son, make your own mind up, right? And play it by ear.
Yeah.
That was my dad's sort of way of living, you know. Um, but I didn't listen to that for a long, long time. And it was only when I was 38 years of age that I finally let go of my mother's leg, you know. And that was in an attempt
Yeah.
to do myself in, you know, because I made 3 serious attempts to kill myself. And for some reason, and I know the reason now clearly, that didn't work, you know. And I almost in the final one, hope to God it's the final one, right? In the final one, I just got this sort of feeling of complete and utter peacefulness, you know. And in this sort of
Yeah.
sense of the peace that passeth all understanding, I understood everything about everything, you know. And I was even presented with a sort of a mathematical cipher, if you like, of how the world was created and what it was all about, you know. And I got the impression that I was turned around by something, you know, kicked up the bum and told, son, you know, you shouldn't have signed up for this if you can't take a joke, you know, because you signed up for this, you chose it, right? And what we're going to do now is you had to go through all this stuff to understand what most people go through. And so we're going to help
Hmm.
you a day at a time, a breath at a time, to sort of disentangle yourself from all this stuff that you've created. And in the process, other people will be able to see, you know, and just tell them simply what you're doing, and it might help people, you know. I didn't know I was going to go on about all that there, but that's what my life's been like now for the last 33 years, you know. But I can see it was set up right even before I was born. I know that very clearly now, you know.
Yeah. I'm fascinated that you used, so I was I in 1986 was when it happened. And so for you to feel it in 1987 like you did, as I needed to hear that today. I forgot um at the time that it was happening, I understood it as that there was only a couple of us that was going to feel it at that time, you know. And I was pretty small. I was pretty young, you know. I would think that was when I was 7 years old. um this was also the year that my grandfather died, and therefore the first time that my family realized that the individuals I'd been talking to and stuff weren't imaginary, that they were people who had passed over. And it was the first time that that was made known. It was kind of an echo. Hey, it's 111 here
Yeah.
right now. It was kind of an echo of what we're doing right now. So starting on the 18th, moving into the 24th, we're in this um, threshold of what's called the phase of clarity. It really hit on the 18th. Like a lot of people were like, wow. Like before the show, um, Dr. Joe asked me how I was doing, and I already forgot all of the parts that sucked, because I'm just like, it's great, you know, like because it's for some of us it was such a pronounced. Though today, I was talking to some other people about it. So today is kind of like the day of like the bending the knees before the jump. So there is that dip kind of. And so a lot of times when people dip, they forget that it's temporary, because it's like, oh no, I'm going to be here the rest of my life. Um, and just like you, I attempted suicide several times. I wanted out of here. Um, I knew my whole life too that I was to die when I was 21, and that 1999 Y2K um, stuff, window of time, and that was another one of the 1986 types of leaps that happened. A lot of people chose to leave the planet at that time. Um, there was one in 2007. Um, there was one in 2002 as well. And then we started getting closer and closer to the 2000s, or the 2020s, and it picked up to where. And so you can also look back at these dates. It's really fascinating, because doing what we do, we get to talk to people and find out. And one of the things people like to say is, this is when my awakening was, you know. And usually we'll point out the most significant or most profound awakening of a series of awakenings that we have. So um looking at those years, those are the ones that most people report. And I was, you know, it was 1983 that I had my first near death experience and came back as an empowered being. And so I was able to observe this as it was happening throughout my life.
Yeah, similar times really. I think 1981 was another time for me, when my son was born
Mhm.
and things like that, and I was at the time overjoyed at his birth and really disgusted with myself, because I was addicted to alcohol. I couldn't stop.
Mm.
I used to kneel down and swear to the people around me that I swear to you, when my son is born, or when our son is born, that will be the end of it. I'll change my ways, and I really, really meant it, and I couldn't because I understand now that addiction, and this is my field of study really, is that addiction is based in emotional insecurity, and more than anything else, it's emotional immaturity. And I didn't want to hear that, that it's really about growing up, and I see that life now for me, or the way I look at it, is all about self-actualization. It's about self-mastery. We signed up for this thing here, and it was about, we even signed up for the experiences, the stages, the scenes that are set, and what actually happened was, it's coming up, as I say, to 33 years since I've had a drink or any other mind altering substances. I'm sort of, I'm a person who believes that cleanliness is next to godliness, and I don't mean that in a moral way. I just mean that in order to keep the channels open and clear, then I have to be scrupulous really about what I'm ingesting, not just in food and drink ways, or injecting certainly, but also in the thoughts that come to me as well. So I'm just learning as I go along. People say to me, God, you've got all these qualifications and this, that, and the other. Honest to God, Pamela, I don't feel clever. I don't feel like a clever person. That's all. In fact, I think,
Right.
that imposter thing, I think I'm sure, who is this that's getting all this stuff, because I don't know how it's happening, so it's almost like by accident, on purpose, that things happen to me, but I only honestly ever
Yeah.
feel that I'm just scratching the surface of this thing,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say the same, and that's congratulations on the 33 years. That is a very, it takes, I would say that most of my close friends are involved in some type of program or had some type of history with addiction.
yeah,
It's, um, the words that I always get from spirit with that is purification by fire, not specifically addiction, though this does go under the umbrella of what they're
yeah,
talking about. That most of us do have, there's other types of trauma, um, and not always as an addictive personality going to engage in addiction, though they will still have this trauma, these different variety of things. As an example, that near death experience at 4, um, the lifetime that I had leading up to 4 was not easy. It was very violent. Lots of violent things happening in the house against the children, including myself. And um, it was a time of fear all the time. To laugh would be, you you would get in trouble. And I laugh all
yeah,
the time. Like I still did then too. You'd see the photographs of our family and everybody's all like scared, and I'm just like,
yeah,
fuck you. Like that's the look on my face, but it's smile too. And um I would say that being able to, because most people who are of this world that we talked about in recovery and things like this, or had come from a place of noticing addiction, or something that was disharmonious to them and then healed it, um, tend to be the people who do say
yeah,
fuck you. You know what I mean? And it's good. It's good to say, I'm not okay in this energy over here, and so therefore I'm not going to do it. And there is a social dynamic that people will usually often engage in to make a person feel guilty or good about doing that. However, um, that's it's fascinating that this even came up. I didn't even mean to say this, but this is some important topic that I was going to get to later on, is that that's where we are right now, is this time of the separation of, I'm not going to participate. I'm not going to participate. And whatever that is that doesn't fit with you. And what I'm finding is, at first when I'm doing it, I feel like I'm doing it solo, because you have to do all these really important things by yourself. It just works out that way. So you think, when I say, screw all y'all, I'm doing my own thing, be conflicty and icky over there, I'm done. I just can't do it. I'm out. If you want to be happy, that's over here, kind of thing. And then it not only produces an amazing result, but then it gives permission to those around you to do the same. Like, I don't want to do that
yeah,
either. Like, I'm so glad you said that. Now I can say no, you know?
I couldn't agree more. I like these little sort of text messages, like WTF and GFY.
Yeah.
GFY is one of my favorite ones, really. But I try and moderate that, right? So go fuck yourself, and
I don't know what GFY is.
it's go fuck yourself, basically.
Oh,
And it's like
no one's
yeah,
ever said that to me
yeah.
before.
GFY, and they smile at first until it clicks, and they go, hey, what? But I like to try and sort of moderate it in a bit, to say that's not my cup of tea, because I but if they get too close, then I'll say the other one, then I'm doing my own thing, whether you like it or not, and that was I never
Mhm.
I learned a valuable lesson from the person who took me through the program of recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he said to me, Joe, the reason that you're not truthful is it's not to spare other people's feelings. It's to spare your feelings in case they don't like it. Right. And I thought, yeah. So everything's self-serving and everything's self-centered, and I realize that now is that we're all in this together alone, and we constructed it.
Right.
We wrote the script, we wrote the scene and everything else. So, that's where I'm up to now. Personal 100% responsibility for everything that I'm attracting, And I feel at a deep level, and I'm not a religious person. I mean, I was when I was a child. I was sent away at 11 to train to start priesthood training, all this sort of business, So I had all that sort of background, highly religious, and I thought it was really holy young fella, I could point my hands to heaven better than anybody else, and all that sort of business, But I don't know where I'm going with this now. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is, I realized that it was a setup by me from the start, and that
Yeah.
this Joseph Peter Aloysius Delaney thing is really the vehicle through which the real business is being done. And I see that more
Yeah.
than anything else. And I realized, people said to me, just be yourself, and I always thought I was being myself. This is the truth, until I started to see that all my life had been basically a lie. I was nothing but a programmed automaton that had been fed all this shit by society and the people that brought me up in the way that they thought was
Right.
best for me, but actually it was counter to
Right.
my authenticity, and that's where I'm up to now. I'm on a sort of a mission to help people to reconnect with their authentic selves, and to allow them to be guided through that, really, not to tell them what to do, other than, if you want to know what you really need to do, is it's not in here, it's in there.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for. Get back
Yes.
in there. And they say, well, how do you do that then? So I show them, and then kick them off and say, listen to your heart and follow its promptings.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And people give way too much importance to the brain and the function of the brain. Like, definitely there's some stuff there, that will limit function if there's some type of injury and so on. However, um, something that just came through a couple of days ago is, so when something new comes in, I'll re-experience it. Like, I'll go over it again and again, and I call it a loop. And sometimes I'll get stuck in the loop because it's like really fascinating or entertaining. Um, and I've just been guided lately, by guides and stuff. The energies that come in to not engage so much is because I'm doing manifestation stuff with it. Um, it's a past experience, and so it's time to, when the past is the past. That's not, And so what was fascinating about this is that, typically, historically speaking, before the 18th, when this type of thing would occur, what I would do is it would push the energy, because it's electricity, it's light. Everybody talks about synapses and how important they are, and they are. They're not supposed to be all in your brain. They're supposed to be all through your body, and I can see them. And that's part of what I do when I do sessions and healings, is directing the light where it needs to go. That's it. And they're electric looking. However, when you're in a loop, there's just way too much emphasis. There's concentrated light that's not supposed to be there. And so I would push it down, and it does still cause some type of congestion. And I never, anyway, the new way of doing it was that they said, put it back in your hands. I didn't even realize I had taken it from my hands. Right. And so I did this. I just put my hands on my head, and I could see the light move down, down, down. And it went, woo, and it reactivated my heart center. And I was like, oh, I'd been taking the wrong path. So I've been guiding it through the wrong path. And so I don't know if that's useful for everyone, but it worked for it. That's what this body's doing right now. And so it's useful to, there are different methods than we had thought, um, that we can use now, maybe we couldn't use before. So try some stuff out.
No, I agree with you. I think it's time for moving and shaking and getting the energy going and flowing again. Because to me, dis-ease, right, is simply a blockage of the free flow of unconditional love,
Mhm.
and it's a blockage to this free flow that causes, on the one side of the blockage, too much energy, and on the other side of the blockage, not enough energy. So, to de-obstruct it, there's always a lesson in it, really. And I see that if we go in our heart and say to our heart of hearts, what is it that you're trying to show me? Or what have I attracted to me, and what action do I need to take? It will probably say something like, take this action. And then the little child in us will go, oh, do I have to? And it'll be, yeah, take the action. And so when we take the action, whether it be de-obstructing something personal or even some sort of ancestral thing that's coded in our DNA, when we take the action and walk through it, all the energy then starts to flow. We sort of get more courage then, more flow, more vitality, more self-esteem, more self-worth, blah, 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 blah. And then we can go forward then to the next episode of growing up, really. So, yeah, I see that clearly. But, something you've said, I teach, I'm like you, I can see where people are obstructed energetically, and I help them to do that. But I think if you get into meditation and start to feel, people say moved by spirit, when you can feel that sort of moving energy in you, you can use sort of imagination and breathing techniques to de-obstruct various parts of your body, so any pain in your body really can be breathed away when particular actions are taken. But, people talk about Kundalini awakening and all this sort of stuff. I think, in my view, and I've done a lot of this stuff like yourself, in my view, they misunderstand it really, and I think that you can actually activate it through various techniques. But if you're still emotionally insecure, it can cause more damage, So I think it will naturally emerge if you just get out of the way. It will help you to see what needs to be done in a step-by-step direction, and that will help people to understand what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And the indoctrination of the medical system often inspires this fear that you're talking about, this nervousness regarding a variety of these things, because they are a sign or a symptom of some type of malady that is in the books that on the one of the websites or whatever medical world. And that's why it's been so fascinating to watch the evolution of the ascension symptom followship of my channel.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that would be what I was going to be doing. However, it's only to point at that a lot of these like Kundalini type experiences that people are having previously had gone to medical professionals and been often guest diagnosed. That's almost everybody will say. They're like, well, I don't know if this will help you, but here's some pills,
Yeah.
and we don't really know what the side effects are going to be for another 10 years. We'll let you know when, and you can get like a settlement, when that happens, if you're still alive. I'm sorry for the judgment, though. That doesn't always happen. That's just an observation.
No,
regarding this.
I agree with you. I'm not opposed to anything medical if it's used in the right amount at the right time for the right condition. I think I'm not opposed to anything at all if it will help the individual to become more free and more reconnected to their essential core selves. So I don't fight, because part of my job is in the middle of medicine anyway. I'm at the moment supervising 40 postgraduate medical students, in becoming better people. They're becoming educational supervisors to treat their trainees better. So what I try and do is I bring in all this stuff now under the surface. So spirits have got me working like Oscar Schindler. I'm sort of in the enemy's camp, but chucking in a few, and I love it, because part of my job, a bit like yourself, I suspect, is I just like taking the piss out of people, because I've got that sort of smirk all the time. And I think that we're part of the Heyoka clan, really, So I just sort of sit back and smirk now, because, through, because I used to be a know-all, knows, nothing, and, about lots and lots of things on the outside, I know quite a lot. But about myself, I didn't have a clue, So it's almost like I had to go through that process where my head was turned round, my eyes looked in, and I started to understand then more and more what it's all about, really. And like I say, Pamela, I'm only just learning more and more each single day, because there's just too much, just too much. Yeah, but it's fascinating, and it is exciting a lot of the time. But I found the last month, particularly with people around me and our pets being very ill and stuff like that, it's been a bit jarring and wearing, really. But from myself, I can remain generally emotionally calm and clear-minded, even in the most trying of circumstances, and that's a miracle for me, because the emotionally reactive Joe, right? I'd have an emotional reaction, I get a bad feeling, and the next automatic reaction was to get a drink down me. So that's miraculous, really, and I can see it's all part of the plan, really, or the process.
Right. What do you think you're being prepared for?
Leadership. I've got
Yeah.
no doubt about that,
What
really,
kind of
because people say, oh, there's no leaders in it. Yes, there is. In my view, yes, there is. And it's just somebody who's maybe been a little bit further than most, right? And is able to turn around and say, well, when I was going through that, this is what I did. Take it or leave it. But, by all means, don't discount it, right? And see if it works for you, And then that's up to people then, because I don't force anybody to do anything. I think one of the cleverest things that I ever heard was just simply share your experience, your strength, and your hope with people, right? Because the seeds will be sown. And don't, Joe, have any expectations of anything. Just let it go then, and let them get on with it. You know what I mean? Because in the end, nobody can do anything to help you grow up other than yourself, really. So I've got no doubt about it. I've gone from being a sort of believe it or not, somebody who was really shy. I couldn't speak in groups. I couldn't do any of that, So I've been. It can't shut me up now. I've been completely and utterly transformed, But I do just tell the truth. I don't even like head. I call this the headator, I just open me gob, open me heart, and just see what comes out, It's not really directed, Pamela. It's like if someone gets something from this, then that's good. And if they don't, well, that's all right as well, really.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, there's been times where I've come on shows and thought, "Oh, here's a list of cool things we should talk about," and then you don't talk about any of them, you know, because that's not how I communicate. And I'm I'm sure you also relate to this. Is that I'm always in some way open as a channel, at always, and I've been that way for as far as I can tell all of my life. But it may have been triggered at that first near death experience. I had 5 near death experiences, but that first one was when I was 4. And I would say that, yeah, because of that, I don't think ahead. When I think ahead, when I plan what I'm going to say, I'm stuttering and I'm just not, yeah. And I would, going back to what you talked about with the heart too, I found as something that's useful for people that are not used to communicating with their heart, is to just touch your heart while you're having this internal or even using your voice kind of conversation to open up um, a relationship, building a rapport with who you are is what you're doing. And this is where your soul spark is. It's like a beautiful, brilliant light. The channeled messages that we got back in August, that was when I was, they were like, go on Facebook. And I was just like, I don't want to, and they're like, you should. The first message I posted was that the channeled message from Archangel Michael was talking about the corridor. And I was like, what's up with the corridor? Why you keep using this word? And he said that it's the core, it's the door at the core of your heart, this spot where people aren't letting the energy continue to flow. So everything stopped at the heart center. And that's why all of this lower body and extremity issues have been occurring for people. Then when you go in spirit form in that microscopic way and get to follow the waves of light of people's electricity, you'll see this to be true, that their legs, their arms, their hands, their feet, there'll be light in their all through their torso. There's light there, but it's like kind of like someone just tossed yarn in there. It's kind of tangled and it's not very bright. It's not going where it needs to go. And it's because there was this block, door, trap door, some type of block barrier at the base of our heart. This is our heart. And we've been doing all of these chakras. And then about here is like, we're all like, now what are we going to do next? Like moving on. And it's like, no, dude, finish. And so this motion and this movement of the heart has been something now, this new part about the heart activation thing. And it's not new. Everyone I've told this to has said, I did that when I was a kid, so we know what this is. It's holding your breath and laughing with joy. And at first it's like, you're just like doing it because you're doing it. And then it's like, you're really laughing. And I was outside in the dark. Well, it doesn't get dark here. I'm in the city. It's fascinating. It doesn't get dark here because the lights are everywhere. But it started doing this and growing bigger. And like the heart center, I could see it glowing out. And every time I've done it, it's like exercise in a spiritual way. And I want so bad to show how to do it, but you can't tell. Just looks like I'm hiccuping or something.
No, I agree. I'm on the same page, really. I think when we go to Houston, we could maybe do this on the stage or something. But I went to Glastonbury recently and gave a talk down there about the dragon's breath, really. Started in the lower dantian, 2 inches below the navel. But if you breathe in a certain way there, but express it through an open heart, because to me, the heart's the transformation center, really. It's where all the compressed, condensed energy has been there for a long, long time. And I think it's like an atomic bomb waiting to go off. And sometimes if you inappropriately activate Kundalini through drinking drugs, or call it what you like, that repressed energy, I think if it goes out of there from those bottom chakras straight into your head, it can drive you mad, and that's the thing, So it's got to be, through the Christ center. I'll call it that, not for a religious purpose, but just for the transformation, And I think in the Bible, I think it says, unless you go through me, you'll never get to the kingdom of God, So that means energetically that the heart's got to open and act as the regulator, really. And the word I see that is, and they've shown me this for a long, long time now, is that's the number 13 to me, with the 12 satellites around it, And I think that we have 12 potentials as human beings, which represent the 12 disciples, the 12 skills, the 12 potentials, the 12 spheres of the new Kabbalah, all these different things that they send to me, and what they tell me to do is now simplify that and explain it to people what it means, And I think that's what's happening. Recently, Kate Lumley sent me a link to a film called Code 12, it's called. And it blew my mind because it's basically my whole life, right? It's absolutely and utterly fascinating. And I understand now why I've been so obsessed with the 12, but also the Christ center. To me, 13 is the Christ, and that's the regulator. And I think for a long time, when all our emotions are all over the place, it's like these babbling disciples falling out with one another, and it's all sort of a rabble and chaotic, really. But as the heart starts to open, it say, hey, you lot, I've had enough of this now. I'm the boss. So you start listening to me.
Yeah.
You over there, number 3, you're good at that. So keep your gob shut and go and so it's almost as if the heart starts to send out now information. And that to me is what self-mastery is about, really. And in that same process of mastering each of these dimensions, new skills and attributes come online, like things like telepathy, things, all the gifts that are coming online for a lot of people now is because of this awakening of the heart, And just let me say this, Pamela, I think people talk about an electromagnetic effect, but I think what's happening now is, and I've clearly been shown this now, is that the sacred feminine energy that's flooding in now, right, is a magnetic effect. So it's not electromagnetic, it's a magneto-electric effect. So the soul, in fact, is sending a magnetic energy in, which is then stimulating the electrical system of the nervous system. And that's why we're having all these ascension symptoms, because it works on different chakras when the soul decides, not when the ego decides, really, And so really, I think if you surrender to your, because, the corridor to me is the 2 gates of the heart open, and then the soul speaks through there then. So if we can listen to the soul and almost like say to it, what is it that I need to do? And it will guide you on a daily basis of what actions to take. Because sometimes if you listen to external stuff, they can point you to the wrong actions to take, which can actually set you back a long way, really. So it's almost like you've got to unlock and unblock and disentangle in the order that it was laid down. And only the soul can see that. Christ, I've gone on a lot there, but Put that in your pipe and
Oh,
smoke it.
gladly. You said a lot of awesome stuff. I want to point out a comment really quickly. Kara Morris is in the audience. She says 12 times 12 is 144. 12 has always been an important number for me. Always. And I agree with you. 12 is okay, now we're getting to 13. Like, when you complete, it's 12, and the completion is 13.
Yeah.
And 13, this has been a kick that I've been going on forever. And like, even when I was younger, and everybody would just look, I've been that eccentric person that for some reason everybody still wants to hang out with. Like, I didn't know I was popular in high school because I just said fuck you to people all the time, but in my own way, Anyway, is that 13 is the hidden number. In this country, at the very least, because I don't know about any other countries, it's hidden. If there's multiple floors in a building, like where there's like 14 floors or something, they'll skip from 12 to 14. They won't have a 13. You'll go down the hall and there'll be a whole bunch of numbered rooms. And once you get upon 12, it'll jump to 14. Same when you're standing in line, you pull a ticket. You'll never get a 13. 13's been removed. And then we've been told how it's like bad luck and oh no, Friday the 14th and this whole 13th of this whole thing about 13, 13, 13 being so bad, when 13 is completion. 13 is when what it looks like energetically. It looks like, I was telling Stacy about this earlier. We did this work last night, she and I. It was weird how you can meet people in the void. I had no idea you could do that. Is that we're taking elements of templates from previous lifetimes and timelines and stuff. You know that game, the Simon Says, it had the four lights and they would light up and you'd have to push the button in the order.
Yeah.
There's yellow and green. It looks like that. It looks like that. We were taking a color and going boom. And when it was in the correct spot, it would light up and then it was in its spot. And we've been doing this in this energetic void place as a collective. And it's like we're doing a puzzle. And it has to do with this completion number, and each of those four pieces are a gender. I don't know what that means because I only know of two genders that we talk about: divine feminine, divine masculine. But they're highlighting in this womb place, the void, as there's four genders. And I don't know. Do you have any insight on that? I'm curious.
No. The only insight I have really is that the I am approach to health and well-being has got four quadrants, and I see it as a sphere. So to me, the soul's like a sphere. So there's no up and down. There's no linear. So somebody could come here just to plug one hole back in and then be complete. And that's why we can't know where anybody is, because they might want to come back and be the most horrible person in the world, but that's part of the experience that they've missed out on. So when they plug that one in, they become whole then. So what I get then is it's not really about lines and levels and stages. And there's actually, in my view, no higher and lower. There's just coordinates on this global thing, really. So I know we have to use these words to sort of try and explain things. But the four quadrants to me are physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And when those four are in balance, then that's center point then. So that's when they all light up and become whole. But there's also the north, south, east, west as well. So there's that quadrant thing as well. But I like to try and explain to people that people get mixed up between male and female and masculine and feminine, and I think that we fight a lot about when people are fighting a lot really about masculine and feminine when they're really talking about male and female, so I don't know the answer to your question, but four quadrants is important to me really, because there's four chambers of the heart, there's four chambers of the brain as well. So four is an important number really for wholeness. And I think what we've done is we've lived in this sort of 3D reality when really we've been missing four and other dimensions as well. So the fourth dimension's coming online now, and call it what you like. I think it's to do with time and also sort of timeline sort of reunifying and stuff. But other than that, I've got no idea.
That was insightful. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you on all your points. I find that we're leaving language more and more. That's why there's been so many reports of people having lack of access to vocabulary, is because we just don't resonate with the words, that because of the hijack nature of them, they've been kind of apprehended by. So the word power is its purest form is always about empowering, giving power, assisting someone to find their own power, this type of thing. And what has become typical for that word is to overlord, to overpower, to enslave and become the boss in some way, and to manipulate that individual. um, and so this is just one example of that we just don't resonate with the words. And truthful, obviously all the stuff that we're saying is true. I don't know why I say truthfully sometimes, because it's like, well, I just, but one of the other points is that all of the energies that I communicate with, apart from those who are incarnated in these bodies the way we are, don't use language. They just don't. Like, it's visuals, it's sensations, it's different senses, and it's a parcel, and it looks kind of like a flower that's not bloomed yet. However, there are many layers of petals within it until you get to the center. And so, and then so you kind of look at each petal to understand the information, and then you just know, and then you're always sharing your own, and it's just this share back and forth kind of thing. And I find that a lot of people are learning to do this, which is really fun. Hey, Diamond Heart says it's 11:44 and it's 1:44 my time. um Charmony, thank you for pointing that out. It's really cool is that um so there have been some things brought forward recently that are showing people they're learning how to how to use telepathy in a group manner. And one of those was highlighted with that conversation with Elsa. I don't know if you caught that, when I was saying that the reason that and I didn't even know it until they showed it to me, is really cool. The reason that we use so much media, like movies and things like this, as examples of things that we're experiencing, and that there's so many things that we can access to point at. This is what it feels like to, like, using the Matrix movie as an example is really common. um, is that we can agree on a timestamp. So everybody in this group, when you say, that time when Neo was at his computer and she said, follow the white rabbit, and everybody who's watched that movie collectively goes there at the same time in their head, and now they're experiencing, practicing what group telepathy feels like. And that's why we do that. I always wondered why we did that. There are other things that we do, that we're doing right now, that we're practicing these things. My biggest difficulty at Joe is that I get people's parcels before they speak.
Yeah.
And so usually I want to answer answer what they just said. And poor person hasn't even spoken yet. And they're just like, she's interrupting me again.
I'm exactly the same. I do that, because then Joe says to himself, keep out of it, will you? Just be patient, right? Allow them to get the whole message out first, And someone said that's called learning to listen and listening to learn, really, So I do that. I butt in, but that's all part of that sort of excitement thing, really. And I do agree. I sat in a meditation circle for many years. It was almost like a trance circle. And what they used to do is they'd lead us through a guided meditation into this deep place, whether it be a pool in a deep sort of cavern and stuff like this. And we'd sit there then. And then when we came out, then we'd share our experiences. And it's absolutely amazing how many were exactly the same all the way around, So some weeks we'd be taken to like a different off-planet thing, or another time we'd be ancient Egypt and stuff like that, So it's really... Where I'm up to now is people keep talking about downloads. I don't get downloads. I get uploads now. It seems to come from within and up and out of my heart and into my head then, And I think that's how I get like an upload, really, because I can see that most of my life when I was doing all the science and stuff, it was all in here and it was actually pushing the information. And somebody said to me, there's a phrase, it says, oftentimes intellect thwarts intuition. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? And it's really that intuition is a heartfelt thing, isn't it? It comes from the soul through the heart and up into the head, But if there's too much intellect and we're sort of over analyzing stuff, it actually blocks what's trying to come up, So helping people through mindfulness. And what I've learned is, people say to me, well, how do you quieten your mind? Mine is that you focus on a feeling, and I don't know whether you know, Pamela, but I teach people heart-centered, mindful breathing, really. And the most important thing is, if you can get to breathing about 6 breaths per minute, what actually happens is the dualities, or those two, the yin and the yang, actually coincide with one another, and it becomes coherent. So that's really the reunification process. So it's just simply through breathing, and I say this on a lot of things is Buddha was asked, is there a fast track to peace of mind? And he just said, become aware of your breathing, and that becomes it more than anything else is, because it's from there to there, basically. There's where the solution is, and in that space between breaths, I think what happens then is then the uploads come out, and then we get fed these bubbles of inspiration and things like that, So and that's all I'm trying to, my head's been that complicated for a long time, because I used to think that the more information I crammed in, the more books, the more this, that, and the other. First of all, the more famous I'd become, because I'd be able to spout stuff off, and all that. But I realized today is you get to a place where you realize that you're just given the information breath by breath on how to live a life, and you don't need to plan anything. If you just trust that you'll be fed with the information you need, you don't have to, you can relax, basically.
Yeah, I like that. You brought up a something that I've been doing without, just I find power in it, is that, and I probably would word it in a way that sounds not what it is, but it's limiting breath. And that what that is when I'm breathing, then I'm slowing down my breath to the point that I'm holding it quite a lot. And when in those moments of where it's being held, you can see and feel all of the energy swell. And then that's how I taught my daughter to do these love balls that she does, is that's what we do, is we swell, and then you physically pucker up your lower body as you pull up the energy from Gaia that comes up to you, and it grows and becomes this big thing. And it is what it is you're making, and what we make, just because that's who we naturally are. I would say that probably everybody in the audience is included in this group. What we naturally make is love, is joy, is bliss, is these things that this is why kind of stuff. And so that's what we share out to others. That's what we share out. When we swell it, we can also, though here's the other point, that many people have been guided to, because we're all loving, service-oriented individuals, caring about everybody else. It's really great that you are that way, everybody. However, the first steps isn't to send now this love ball out. It's to then reconsume it. So then when you're exhaling the breath, then watch it swell within everything that is you. And there's a sound associated. It sounds like, it's like this. There's a sound that comes, and it just grows, and it's amazing. From that, then share out. See, a lot of people will just share their cup and just empty. You need this first, right? And so, I don't remember where I started talking about that, but it led to this other thing over here. So,
But I think you're right. I think it's all about time and energy management, and managing. I mean, once you get to start to feel the flow of spirit, right, then you can start to direct it. Then you can start to contain it, and then you can actually send it where you want it to go. And I think also you can use it then to open these 12 portals, because the keys aren't the tones, ketones, if you like, prevent diabetes by using these ketones, So the thing is, you can actually then feel where the obstructions are, clear it out like a spiral cleansing thing, and that opens the portals then to other. And I think this is conscious sort of traveling, really, to different dimensions, So I think that we're all being trained in this. And pain, as I said before, is simply an obstruction to the free flow of this intelligent energy that's trying to guide us to the next stage in the process. I think that anger to me is blocked love. It's simply blocked love, and what it does is, somebody said to me, being angry is like drinking a bottle of bleach, hoping the other person dies. It's that sort of insane, really. And once I started to see this, that I was containing all this stuff rather than expressing it. But when I was on the drink, I used to express it in a big destructive way. It was horrendous. It was violent. It was destructive. And, I've destroyed many, many places through this, but at first, because I was a gross people pleaser, and I wasn't authentic about expressing my stuff, So I was compressing this stuff all the time. And when I drank, it sort of left the lid off it, and then it would come out in a way that was uncontrolled, and it caused a lot of damage, But I've sort of got over that now. I've completely and utterly seen the light in regard to why it happened, And that's why because I've been through that process, I can almost like smell where a person is, really, and guide them from that point, you know. So you're right, and as for sending sort of love bombs and stuff, I do that myself, because I don't know whether you know Seafood Buggy, but he's my mate over here, Seafood Buggy, and he teaches a lot of Tai Chi and Qigong techniques, and we talk about this all the time, really, And it sort of led me into Reiki healing and then spiritual healing and different aspects of healing. But where I've come to now is it's just love, it's love with different labels on it, really. And if the intention is to open up and allow love to go to other people in that they're helped, then that's what it's about to me, really.
Right. And I would say that that's a natural side effect. Is that so? Like this right here, this background is kind of what the example of what I really meant when I was talking about the Simon Says. This is what we really look like. It's more complex. It's not just However, the four was the main parts. Hey, Todd's here. He says Dr. Joe and
Seafood Buggy, yeah.
Snuffy Boogie. What are you saying?
Seafood Buggy, yeah. Seafood's like a Chinese sort of the master, and Buggy just means like he's mad.
Okay. It's lost in translation, but awesome. Welcome. So with these orbs, I'm sure it's an inside joke. That's what I meant. With these orbs is that we have all of these spaces that are already within us, and they're all already activated.
Yeah.
It's what I understood in this interaction that we had of this teaching that occurred and it will continue to, is that they're just not in the right spot. It's just one of those shift puzzle games, right?
Yeah.
And so once we address, oh, excuse me, my alarm's going off. Okay, each place and find where it naturally wants to go, and then it doesn't really want to leave that spot anymore, so you're good. That's what it kind of felt like. It's like, oh, thank you, now I'm home. So then you could address the next thing. This is happening in a rapid way for everyone right now, and I would say that one of the characteristics that are most commonly associated with this is just not feeling satisfied somehow, realizing that there's something that they just don't resonate with, that they've been doing, and a lot of people will associate this with a symptom of a dark night of the soul, because we shed relationships, we shed things that don't serve us during dark night of the soul kind of experiences. But I would say that at this point, people are typically having all the time what that part of dark night of the soul, because we have so many layers that we've added to ourselves that we don't need. I bring this part up because they're showing me to talk about the move that you had mentioned that I had done earlier this month of just getting rid of all of my belongings. And in short, all of that was okay. I had no idea what was going to occur, why I was doing it exactly. I knew that I felt held, like comfortable, safe. Just, there was no kind of any concern. However, when it got pushed up to an earlier time, and then I saw that was 3 1s, the date that I came was 111. Was another, because that's an Odin day kind of thing. It was really bizarre. So what was meant to do is I was meant to purge. For me, I needed to purge all, if not, or most of everything except for a few suitcases and my computer. I needed to release all these things and leave where I was at. And I'd done a lot of work trying to make it so I could still ship my stuff. I did. I put a lot, and that's why they accelerated it. They're like, okay, you're going now. I'm like, no, wait, I have till December. But like, no, we're going now. And so this was an extreme example, and I tend to be the one of these people in this life, as I kind of I do something that other people will do in a more subtle way in order for it to be seen that this is an example. And so at the same time, many people globally began to realize that there were things they needed to shed from their lives that weren't serving them. They were false anchors, is what they're calling them. They're keeping us in this place. When this is the coolest part, Joe, this is why I wanted to really get to this too personally, is that now we're at the point where we're no longer needing what our root chakra has to offer us. We're no longer requiring assistance in the area of security because we are in a
Yeah.
secure world. We no longer need to worry about financial abundance because we are abundant. Everything is truly free. It's just at the point now of letting everyone catch up to knowing that's true. You know, it a long time ago, the teachers or the bosses or the parents, whatever you want to add in there, the authority person has left the building long ago. And the children are still behaving as if they have to follow the rules of these false guardians,
Yeah.
right? So that's where we are now.
No, I agree, and I get the feeling that the first three chakras of what it was to be human are sort of evaporating now. Really, we will transcend, but include the experience that came from them, but we're not attached to them anymore. Really, and I think I mentioned to Elsa, what I was shown is it's about the phases of water, and it's almost like a sublime evaporation that's happening now as we become more etherealized, really. And that's what, to me, enlightenment is we start to feel the flow more. There's less gravity and more levity. That means lightheartedness. And in that levity and levitation, that's actually moving us up now, and we're becoming more and more. So it's almost like a physical lightning, really. And in that process, and with more flow, there's more bliss, there's more joy, there's more creativity, there's more understanding, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah. And when you're in a place of play, everything's easier. And when everything's easier, then like whistle while you work, kind of thing. You don't even realize that what you're doing is what something you used to classify as work, right? And it's just easier to do, and then with the group and everybody's doing it at the same time and it's a party, and then you realize it was kind of like a Tom Sawyer situation and somehow we painted the
Yeah.
fence.
No, exactly. And I just read something before it came on about neural development and new neural pathways. If you're playing and doing it joyfully, you only have to do things 10 times. But if it's a pain in the arse to do, you have to do it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So it's really about, it's got to be done. So why not enjoy it while you're doing it as well? And that's what the theme of my life
Yeah.
is, that the joy of living is my theme now, as far as I can, le joie de vivre, because I think that's the vitality that drives the process, really. But you've sort of almost
Yeah.
know thyself. You've got to become reacquainted with all the aspects of your body, right, to know when it's sort of being blocked off by very subtle ego influences and things like that. So it's just about, again, it's about self-mastery, self-awareness, and more and more sensitivity, which is a
Yeah.
gift, not a curse, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it used to be called a curse. Um, the message they're telling me these days, going back this segues to something you said earlier as well, um, is that the leaders, the reluctant leaders are the leaders of today. They keep saying this to me over and over again. Um, they're saying it mostly to me because I'm that person that I don't ever mean to be a leader. I don't. I don't. I just don't want to do what everybody else is doing. Like I just don't want to do it. And so I'm going to go over here, and then people go over here too. And I'm just like, why are you guys over here? I came over here to get away from you. But it's good because then they'll come through this direction with, I'll think I'm going to play. I don't want to do this anymore too. And so it's really, um being okay with being a leader is hard. It was hard for me to accept because that's just not how I've ever viewed myself before. And so the wording was very succinct that the reluctant leaders are the leaders of today, you
And
know.
I also am one of those by the looks of it, because, it's like when Messenger goes off or an email, it's like, fuck off, leave me alone, right? Do I have to? Yes, you do. You signed up for this, right? Smile while you're doing it. Oh, all right then. So I'm a reluctant sort of like, a reluctant helper as well, because I do love being on my own as well. And people think I'm really gregarious and personable and stuff like that. But the truth about it is, I love my own company and I love the peace and quiet as well.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I'm this person that just like you, I would say that I was extrovert until 2007. And then I went into introvertism until a few months, about a month ago, probably. I started to slowly come out, and I was really kind of confused by the fact that, because before I always I sphered my energy up, and then I started to like extend it out, like reaching out to, I'm like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Like, and more, it became a joke too in these Zoom meetings, just like you. You've heard me. I talk all the time now. I can't stop. And it's flowing out, and a lot of people who have found themselves in this way are reaching out because we're realizing it's safe to do it, that others of us are out here now too, and it's time to like kind of like reemerge from the depths of the root cellar, and rub your eyes at the blinding light and realize that everything's good. And we're in this new world, we're in this place of sharing and prosperity and love and laugh and dance and healing, and that's actually why I'm here in Houston. That's why I've jumped on the Sology bandwagon. Is that well, I mean, there's a lot of amazing people, including you, and that this family. Though, what really piqued my interest was I was supposed to come here to do a healing on this land before the solstice this year, and I didn't know how that was going to happen. I've never been this far east or south. I'm literally on the opposite side of the country that I was in, and I was always told I was supposed to stay on the west side of the Rockies. I wasn't, and I tried a bunch of times because I'm
Yeah.
rebellious and I'm stubborn, and always some crazy thing would happen to stop me from going through to the other side of the mountains. Until now, in fact, my plane was supposed to take me down to Phoenix, Arizona, and then over to Houston, but they wanted to get me on the other side of the mountain so quickly that last minute, I didn't even know they changed my ticket. We went to Minneapolis. We went straight east. And my daughter and I felt the sensation. She said, "Oh, they're pulling me." And I could feel it too. It felt like elastic bands on our back, the whole back of our body just pull, snap. And it turns out at that very moment, a shift occurred where everyone could sense it. That I know I've talked to when I was able to remember the time of it. Um, anyway, the point of all of me saying all of this is that we're here for this festival to collect as many other people as we can to come to do this healing, because this is the last piece of density. Just like you, Joe, I do I call you Dr. Joe or Joe? I've never actually
Joe's
asked you.
fine.
What do I
Yeah,
call
yeah,
you?
yeah. Just
Okay.
you call me anything
Um,
except it's not FOC. That's fine.
okay. I'll call you anything.
Yeah.
Sure. So uh is that Joe, is that um I did have done a lot of planetary work above the planet with many beings, and this is just something I've done as part of what happens with me every time I've gone. I end up back up there. I don't go, okay, I'm gonna go do this now. But just like your trance group that you were talking about, it's like this, where I'll be in a meditation and it's like, now it's time to go there, and I would pick up where I left off and be surrounded by a bunch of other individuals. I'm going to speed this story up because it's kind of a long, extensive one. However, at the end, a snake skin like element came sloughed off the planet and made two planets. And then New Earth is what we're calling it. Old Earth, whatever. You can call it whatever you want. I don't even know if this is really a physical representation or what I was made to see, so I understood what I was doing. However, there was still an umbilical cord stuck between these two. The new Earth was bigger and more vibrant and colorful and brighter. This other one was like a grayscale, smaller. I don't know if this is what Earth used to always look like before we separated, and it was just more obvious because this one's brighter. I don't know how that works. There was an umbilical cord, and so we were doing work to break, to help sever, because it was like the soup can telephone game. The vibration was still making its way of this apocalyptic timeline, whatever needs to play out. I don't even know. Again, this is just what I saw in the moment, so we can interpret it however we choose. Um, anyway, once we did assist that, again, thousands and thousands and thousands of us were up there. It was crazy. It was a lot of, and we were using love power. It was love. We were using love as a
Yeah.
weapon. It was
Yeah.
a weapon of sorts. Um, and the last part, the stump of the umbilical cord is what I'm calling it, that tether that was keeping them together, was I was in the middle of the night. There was no light. I had a notepad because sometimes I needed to write notes. It was really hard to, I drew a map. I'm not, geographically inclined. I have no idea anything past the mountains because I never went there, and what I know where Africa is, but um, anyway, um, I drew a perfect map of here, and the X, the place that was the last part of that stump is in Houston, Texas, and it's black tar like thing. This was the last piece that needs to be healed, and it has to be done before the solstice, before the 21st, or by the 21st of December. And so that's why I'm here. And then I all of a sudden started to get, you need to do a retreat. You need to do a retreat. And this is in June. And I was like, this, okay. And all of my friends that I've been meeting with and these Zooms and stuff were like, we're getting these messages. You're supposed to do a retreat. And I'm like, but they kept saying, don't worry about it. It's just going to be taken care of. The retreat wasn't a word. It was just an understanding because the visual looked like it, I've never been to any of these types of things. Anyway, then 3 days later, out of the blue, he'd never called me before ever. I get a phone call from Todd Medina, and he says, "You want to come to this thing? We're doing a festival." And I didn't even let him finish before I said yes. When I found out when, then I knew this is where we're supposed to go. And this is the magnet that will collect the hearts to come that need to be here to heal the land in order for the next step to happen, which is to move to Arkansas, where we'll go to the Ozark Mountains and start the energetic vibration understanding of what New Earth is like. And it'll echo out for everyone. So that's my story.
No, I understand that perfectly. I didn't know I was a grid worker, right? Because, I just go with what I feel, and I literally do just work one day at a time. I don't try and work out I just go with the feelings. And I've been called to Glastonbury in England many times. And I just go up there with a group of friends, different friends sometimes. We get in a circle. I feel things, I put my arms up in the air and I shake my bottom around a bit, and then I get, okay, you can go now. You've done your bit, But what I see is a Glastonbury tour. I saw clearly like a crystal tour, and I saw the physical tour, and there was like a vibration where they realigned with one another. And I think that's what's happening. And I'll tell you about this as well. I've had this for years now, is the Corpus Christi in Texas and the link to Sarasota as well across the Bay of Mexico. But then from Sarasota then across into Mexico. So there's some sort, and I don't know whether that's to do with like a Bermuda Triangle type thing, but I get what you've just, see, I'm getting the thing up my spine now talking about it. So there must be some truth in this as well. So I don't know, but it seems as though we're like fuses, where we're sort of like electricians, where we go along, replace the fuse, and the circuit is then reintegrated then. And I think that's what we're doing. But it's got to be done in the physical as well, because that's where the power is, So, things can be done virtually, but the actual physical presence of people is much more powerful as well. And that's what the reason is, because it's a physical heart-to-heart connection that's got very, very powerful implications then for the Earth grid. I also get the other thing as well is that Ophiuchus, the sign Ophiuchus is the 13th sign of the zodiac, and that was the missing one as well. And that's got, and also I've had this for ages as well. I've said this to people. I get very clearly is that Sirius C is important as well, because it completes the triangle as well. And, I don't understand fully what it means. I just go with it. And in the fullness of time, it will be revealed to me if it's meant to be revealed to me, and that's why, in a way, trying to work it out beforehand can actually obstruct this sort of the process as well. So I don't know whether that's made any sense, but it almost like sort of cements really what you're getting as well. I'm getting similar stuff, but coming from a different coordinate, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fascinating you said the triangle thing too, because if you look at the map of America, um, the path that I took, I left from Spokane, Washington, went to Minneapolis, went over where I'm going to go to in Arkansas, and then landed in Houston. And so if you look at that, it's actually, if you finish to go back to return, it's now a perfect triangle. It just seems like it's always a triangle. It's always three. It's always Trinity. It's always this. Then and I got this crazy message a while back that I had never, it was before I came here. I didn't know. I was just observing the fact that what I used to do when I was more extroverted, I'm back to kind of being that again a little bit, but was I was a grid worker regarding mostly with people, because I was wondering with my guides and stuff. It's what I had typically done was I would live in a town for about a year, and I would go out and make all these new friends and meet all these new people, and then strangers are friends you just haven't met yet. I used to say all the time, and then you'd run out of
Yeah.
strangers, and then it sucked, because then you just go places and everybody knows you, and like you can't ever go anywhere and like not be interrupted and stuff, and it's like time to move. And I did that every year of my life forever. And they showed me that the energetic exchange that occurred between me and each of those individuals, the strangers who became friends, then passed on their echo and echo and echo and echo and like that whole thing. And so because I didn't really move around, I was up and down the west coast, right? I was on the west side of the Rockies this entire time doing this work. And I was made to understand that that landmass that I was on was one of the original lands. I've given it the name Lemuria, but I don't know if that's true. I know they call it the original landmass, because if we follow the path the way that they've shown me how human evolution works, is that the Egyptians were the last step and also the first of this step. Um, and now we are actually we were the last step, and now we're the first step. So we're actually here now. There are seven though. There are always seven. And so if you go back, you have Egypt, Atlantis, Lemuria. There are others. And there's then you get to a point, because it fills in the seven, where who are the others? I'm actually not completely sure. Though I don't tend to care about
No,
that
no,
stuff.
I don't.
So if I care about it, they'll tell me. So that's something fascinating to consider is, hey, we've been on for 111. That's cool.
No, but we're the same. I don't get I don't get sort of bogged down with all that. If I'm meant to see it, they'll show me quite clearly, and I do get clear pictures and clear images and clear sounds and stuff like that. But what I've got now is the importance of Antarctica as well at the moment, because what's happened is they've taken me back
Yes.
from Glastonbury. They've taken me back down the other way. So it's Glastonbury through France, south of France, with all the Cathar and the Mary Magdalene connections. They've taken me back then into Egypt, from Egypt further down into Africa, into the tribe, the Dogon tribe are important in this, with the Sirius Sea connection. Then they've taken me down through Africa and all the way down into like the Polynesian islands and from, like Easter Island and stuff. I've talked to Elson about this, but then into Antarctica as well, because it's almost like, and when I go to Antarctica, I have two different visions. One side of my head looks like do you remember Superman in his crystal city and all that sort of business? One side of me is like with all that crystal stuff going on, but also I've got the Lemurian one, which is the feminine one, which is more to do with earth, right? And I get those two sides of me playing with one another all the time. I don't fully understand what it means, but it's almost as if these nodes that you're talking about, the seven nodes, may be representative of the seven chakras in the human as well. Maybe they're all reconnecting now, and the connections becoming stronger and stronger. And I think, as within, so without. I think if we work and become more aware of our physical bodies and how the energetics of the physical body works, it will almost like translate into improvements of the earth lines and the ley lines. And finally, what I was given about a month ago is that there's 12 emperor dragon lines being reconnected across the planet. And I'm saying, well, okay, explain to me what that means. Joe, these are like the main arteries of the earth, right? And this is what there's pockets of people now, called grid workers if you like, who are meeting at various sites on the globe to like act as sort of circuit connectors, really. Pamela, what all that means is I've got no idea, but at one level I understand totally. At another level, I'm like, what the fuck's all that about?
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome that it has an entertainment value, so it keeps our interest. I think that's partly why it plays out like a story the way that it does, because we're still like, ooh, what's going to happen
Yeah.
next? Popcorn style. Um, the dragon symbol is insane how frequent it is right now. Dragon, dragon, dragon. And um, back in 2007, the year of 2007 was um, a lot of study ahead of time kind of stuff. I'm finding out all of this stuff that I got in 2007. It's crazy how activated my body is right now. Like I feel like my whole body's electric when I'm talking about this. Um, is that um, one of the things was that the dragon started to come back, the visions that I was getting for this time. And what I observed in the main one of the main visions was, um I wasn't somebody who, I considered myself a very honest person at that time. You know, like, brutally honest was what I was called sometimes as well. Like, I wasn't unkind about it, but I didn't really think about the fact that I might have hurt somebody's feelings just by telling them the truth. Um, it was a different time. I'm not that same person anymore. I can see now, the importance of what they were trying to show me was, now's the time to get rid of all the fucking bullshit. Stop lying. Stop lying. And it really freaked me out because I was like, what am I lying about? And like, the lie of omission became a topic for a long time for me. This, um, you know, making weaves and bobs in order to avoid revealing elements about myself. That was what they were talking about for me. However, the coming forward of the dragon has been, part of our experience through the dragonfly for a long time. The dragonfly eats this is an important part of science. It's fascinating to me. The dragonflies eat the mosquitoes that contain our DNA through the blood. And that's why the dragonfly can then change its harmonics, its frequency, to sync yours, and or in sync with yours, in order to activate you and what needs to happen. That's why there's such a majestic experience when you interact with a dragonfly. And this amazing is truly, a relative of dragon itself. And that's been known through most of the tribal regions through, all time. And what's more is that as these things get activated for us, we find out also, not only is 12 for the 12 apostles, but the 12 DNA strands that are within us. And these 12 DNA strands have always been there, kind of like we talked about earlier about the different, you're filling them and putting them where they go. They've always just kind of been there. They used to call our extra DNA junk
Yeah,
DNA. You remember
yeah,
this?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
surprising how many people don't remember that. I'll say that and they're like, no, that they never told. Really? Because I remember taking the test and being mad about it. I was like, liars, liars, you know, when I was in school. And so, as these 12 DNA strands that look like they're golden white when you look at them, and they kind of spin and weave, they're really beautiful. Um, as they move together, they then, in unity, in unification, in oneness, becomes 13.
And I always see a carousel,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And if one of the horses on the carousel is out of balance, the whole thing starts to, so this again, like the master mechanic, if we can just surrender and let go to the process rather than allowing our heads to interfere all the time, right? Then if we
Yeah.
can surrender absolutely and totally, then we get retuned. We don't do the retuning, it would be too difficult, because what tends to happen is when people think they know what to do, they think, oh, that's out of balance. So they jump to the other side, and then it becomes imbalanced on that side. So then they jump back again, you see. But if they surrender completely, right, then balance automatically comes, really. So I think the moral of the story is completely and utterly give yourself to the next level of your evolution, right? Because it's going to happen anyway. As Todd would say, let go or be dragged. You know what I mean? So let go and be chauffeur driven, really, to the next experience or episode. And that's when it becomes effortless effort, isn't it? I think in Chinese that's called Wu Wei, not Wu Wu. It's called Wu Wei. And it's Taoism, really. It's just like, you've already got the scene. There's a corridor there. Walk down the corridor. The next scene will be presented to you, because it's the soul that's actually assimilating this scene for you in order for you to go on stage, do what needs to be done,
Yeah.
and then the next stage you'll move in then. And that's how you go forward. So you might as well enjoy it. It's supposed to be one of discovery, and it's supposed to be excited as well, Joe, But sometimes, and this is the truth, sometimes it's bloody hard going, And I've said to you before we came on air, the last month has been like hell, right? And sometimes you just can't you can't change your gestalt by trying to psych yourself out of it. You've just got to accept it.
Yeah.
And I go, and this is what I say 1,000 times a day: thy will, not mine, be done, So
Right.
so that's where I'm up to really. I feel wholeheartedly that I'm definitely on the right path, and I've got no idea what's coming up next. And I sort of don't listen. The way I work it though, Pamela, and people don't understand this is, they try and give me predictions and they try to give me feelings of where I'm going. I don't take any notice of that whatsoever because it doesn't make any difference to me what's going to happen tomorrow. I'll just work it in the day, right? Because sometimes that can be a little bit distracting really. And if I'm going to try and focus on what I need to do, is focus on my feelings and just allow it to keep carrying me forward really. I don't know what all that was
Yeah.
about, but it's a bit like, thanks for your message, but I don't work off those sorts of messages. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I use the reference or the visual of a river. Um, we're all on a river, whether we realize we're sharing the river or we're different rivers, whatever. We're all on a river. And by the way, all rivers are fed by the same water source. So, um, and um, when I think about what's coming up ahead, it often is stuff like, no, is there going to be like a crocodile or a big rock or a waterfall or whatever, you know, because there's an unknown. We've been conditioned in this life to assume the worst case scenario will be the what's going to happen, which has been a way of hijacking our ability to manifest in a more clear way. Anyway, which is a side note, an interesting thing to observe about yourself too. So once we clear ourselves of this conditioning, we can say, okay, either I can keep doing what I was talking about. Oh no! And then I bounce off the bottom, and I take on water, and I get scratched up, and I still end up where that river is taking me. I do. I still end up
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there, but it sucks and it hurts and it's just not comfortable. Or I can float. And when I float, not only do I get there faster, but I'm not all
yeah.
scratched up. I can enjoy the scenery. There's some cool deer that said hi while I was on my way, this kind of thing. And it's exactly the same experience. And so sometimes we'll compare notes to another person and they'll be like, man, this was the worst week ever. And it's like, well, they were probably bouncing off the bottom a little
Yeah.
bit, and that doesn't mean that they did anything wrong. That is just simply something, an occurrence that happens to point at it for you. So, there's something to look at to heal. Right. And sometimes I'm the one that's floating on the top and I'm like pretending I'm not floating on the top because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, yeah. I do that as well. I think, no, you've got to be a good example, Joe. And I think, hang on a second, tell the truth, Joe. If it's shit, say it's shit. You know what I mean? And that's and it sort of almost like takes me back into, as you mentioned before, ducking and diving and dodging and weaving and not expressing. So sins of omission and sins of commission and stuff like that. And I think that
Right.
the world would be a better place if we just said before we started anything, well, this is the way that I see it. And if we're working with somebody, how do you see it, Joe? And you allow the person to share how they think and what they feel. But if they're sharing what they think and what they feel, and you keep jumping in by going, ooh, you don't want to be thinking like that. That's what causes the problems. That's why people don't fully express themselves. And I had that since I was a little kid. I would see things, I would say things. My mother would tell me, she'd say, shut up, you stupid boy, and started to sort of go in like a little anemone and go back into the shell, you know what I mean? And then when I got the drink down, because so for the first 11, 12, 13 years of my life, I was like a sort of shrinking violet, believe it or not, But when I got the drink, it was get out of my way, I'm coming through, you know what I mean? So I needed that drink to give me the courage to sort of disinhibit me and allow this stuff. And that's what I got hooked to. I got hooked to the release and the
Yeah.
feelings, And I think what spirits have shown me, let's call it spirit, but what spirits have shown me is that I can be that person disinhibited, but in a sort of regulated way now, most
Yeah.
of the time, most of the time.
I feel it too. I mean, I was because of my background, the adults in my life fed us excessive amounts of alcohol very, very, very young. So you could probably declare me as a what would be called an alcoholic like personality at that age, to the point now that actually my body doesn't. Like I had a beer a couple of weeks ago because I was like, I'm just gonna have, and my body was mad. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't want it. It doesn't want it because I think that everyone has a quantity that they can, if they choose to, consume this alcohol. Um, my body said, "You used your limit up a long time ago, girlfriend. Sit down." And so I don't anymore. However, I can echo, I can understand a lot of what you're saying and where you're coming from. Like at the time, as in the teenage world, that was how I stopped spirit. Was
Yeah.
I quieted spirit because I have always had a lot of spirit energies. People have passed away, other types of energies always coming through, and um, when you're trying to turn it off, not knowing how, I would go to the bottle.
Yeah.
Um, though then I could cross a line of crossing over too far, and then I was calling in a different, darker kind of energy,
Yeah.
you and so for me personally, I don't engage in this any longer for those purposes. Um, and I have observed many people who really struggle coming away from the drink. So it's really beautiful to hear people who are so active in this service way and doing so amazing in life, and being 33 years sober. It's very beautiful, and to pull that forward and let that example be seen. I just want to say thank you for revealing that about you, because, and that's another point that was just made for all of us to see, is that it's something he could have omitted and it wouldn't have been a lie, really. But how many people did he just help? Likely people. We've had consistently about 80 people watching this whole time, and this is the live part, the replay. And how many more people is that message going to be shared to through the voice of those who'd seen it? This type of thing, we don't often know the effect, the positive effect, the ripple that you make, just simple acts. you know where I left, the town that I left from, the first thing they noticed was they had a big snowstorm and no one shoveled. No one even knew that a person wasn't being paid to go around and shovel everyone's driveway in the middle of the night. No one knew because I didn't tell anybody it was me, because I was happy to do it.
Yeah.
Um, it's something that we don't realize, we're making a long lasting impact on people just by sharing these types of things and sharing who you are. So I just wanted to point that out, that thank you for bringing that up too.
No, it's. I know that it's my job now. I know that. I know I signed up for it. I've seen the deepest and been in the deepest and the darkest places. For a reason. So I can sort of, as I said to you before, I can pick up where a person is and maybe where they're hiding from, and gently guide them back to that, so it can release it, so that they can move on. Then and stuff. I suppose we better go now, because I've got to just finish my tea off and then put the girls to
Great.
bed. That's the cats. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Pamela, and I'm glad that we've done this, and maybe we can do it again somewhere down the line.
I would love to. Thank you. And you're coming to the festival, isn't that
Oh, I
right?
am, yeah. I've got a few things up my sleeve there. I'm not keeping anything away, but I've just got a few tricks up my sleeve, and I'm looking forward to it,
Awesome.
really. Yeah.
Great. Well, and anyone who doesn't know, I mean, if you want to come and join us at the festival, it's, if you go to the soulogynetwork.com, you can find, or there's also, I think, Soulgy Fest, I think, isn't there another
I think
one?
I think so, yeah.
Is it called soulgyfest.com or soulgyfest23.com, something like that? You'll find a way of getting tickets there. It's incredibly affordable. There's going to be a bunch of us there. I'm already here now, so if anyone's out in Houston, Texas, and want to have like a pre-group, as I know a few people are kind of gathering around for that, that would be really fun. So, and you can meet Dr.
Yeah.
Joe at the festival. So it's going to be so much fun. We're going to do this healing there. Thank you, Ernestine. I'm going to put this up really quick so everybody could see it from Facebook land, because YouTube doesn't. So soulgyfest.com here. You go there and you can find out more information, find out where it's going to be at, when it's going to be at, and access tickets there. So thank you so much,
No,
Joe.
it's a pleasure. And, you're one of those people who I immediately feel comfortable with and stuff, and I think, and that's part of a deeper sort of resonance from somewhere else. I don't get too much into that, but, there's no pretentiousness. I can just be myself. And I think that's what it's all about more than anything else. I mean, even though I've seen you on the shows with Elsa and Todd and stuff, and the other lady from England, you know, yeah, yeah. I
Stacy.
feel that you can see people on the television or the computer, but I think, well, I don't know what I'm saying now, really. But thanks very much for being you, and I look forward to meeting you in good old Texas.
I look forward to
Right.
meeting you too. And thank you. I feel the same way. It's very easy and comfortable to speak
So,
with
and
you.
thanks everybody, and may the force remain with you forever and ever. In nomine Patris et Filius. There's the old priest training coming out. Right. See you soon.
I'll blessings.
Yes. Bye bye.